The Woman King. If I told you that this film had a strong nationalist message and a strong pro-life message, among other fairly conservative messages, you would probably think I was joking. In fact, I would think I was joking considering what I said about this a couple weeks ago. That being said, Viola Davis, Thuso Badu, Lashana Lynch, Sheila Atim, John Boyega all star in this film from director Gina Prince Brotherwood, with screenplay by Dana Stevens. This film, I must say, I am really shocked of how much I enjoyed this film. It's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but it's certainly not the woke fest that I was fearing, and I'm going to talk about that in my next conservative take. If you're unfamiliar with the way I do my movie reviews, then please check the link right here, and that will explain everything. Also be mindful that there will be a spoiler section, which I recommend you check out. Even if you don't want to see this film, check out the spoiler section because it will let you know some things that the film got right in many, many ways, and things that many people, mostly leftists, won't understand or get or connect the dots. And they'll also try to change some of the narratives from this film, which is strictly and obviously conservative values. So check it out and let's get started. So for the story of this particular film, The Woman King, I'm going to give it a 7. But before we get heavily into that, I want to first talk about the elephant in the room. And that is the fact that I did a video about 2 weeks ago talking about what this film would not talk about. And I was wrong on 2 accounts. One was the account that they were going to mention that this particular tribe in this film, called the Dahomey tribe, would not talk about the fact that they were involved in the slave trade, and 2, that they got rich off of it. It's full front and center in the film. It's part of the plot. In fact, it's about what they're trying to do. They're trying to become independent and try to move off of the slave trade and go into more natural resources and become a more nationalist society, as I mentioned before, that's more core to their principles. And so I thought that was pretty interesting, like Dahomey first, you know what I'm talking about? Anyway, that was part of it. And moreover, it was a story about development of the character of Viola Davis. Her character is named General Naniska. She is by no means a Mary Sue, meaning that she's not some super goddess woman who kicks everyone's butts. No, she's actually very vulnerable in many ways, and emotionally and physically. She can't do it all. Going up against a big man, she gets handled. And so it's really interesting that I thought that this was going to be a movie that would show her in the light that she's just some brooding person that destroys everything in her path. She's not. She's human. She's vulnerable. And I really appreciate that about this film. And one of the main reasons why this movie is not a woke movie per se is because it's actually based on real events. I mean, there was real women that did these real things. And so these are true events. So that's why it's a real deal. It's one thing if they made it up in thin air and put them out there, which is also the reason why Viola Davis's character is not a Mary Sue. All right, for emotional impact, I'm going to give this film an 8 because it's got some scenes in there that I was shocked that I was actually getting a little emotional on. Once you cut through all of the marketing stuff, because really the only thing woke about this film is really the title. I mean, The Woman King, I mean, that's an oxymoron. You can't be a king and be a woman. That right there is woke, and it's marketed as being woke. But at the end of the day, if you peel back the layers, which I will get to in the conservative take, you will find that this is actually a film that has some serious conservative undertones. In fact, the movie Black Panther was pretty much a very conservative film if you looked at it in terms of Wakanda First principle. Check out the video I did for that, for the review on Black Panther. And so, but that kind of stuff goes over people's heads and they don't get it. But this film here had strong emotional elements because, like I said before, the characters, you care about them. When they go into battle, you care about them. When things happen to them, you care about them. When they get captured, you care about them. Them being women, obviously, there's a vulnerability there with men trying to do things to them. And I'll talk about that a little bit at the conservative take section. You care about them. So yeah, there's a lot of emotional elements here that I think was done very well. And the director, Gina, did a fantastic job. And the screenplay was written by a female as well. In fact, the entire production crew, from what I can tell, was done by women. So there is a sentimental element in this film that I think is very, very powerful. So for the intangibles for The Woman King, I'm going to give that a 7. I mean, it's good. I mean, the score of the film was underwhelming. I was trying to hear the music and the score. Wasn't really feeling that. It wasn't that powerful or memorable. However, the acting, oh my gosh, was insane. Viola Davis is fantastic. You feel her. She's not a Mary Sue. She's a human being. She's got pain internally. She's got fears. She's got a fierce determination. She has a devotion to her fellow warriors. And it's just, I mean, in fact, there's a scene that got to me that I'm going to talk to you about in the spoiler section a little bit that really got to me. And it just shows you how layering emotions and layering characters in a way that make them human makes it a much more compelling story. When you put a tag on somebody and then write a narrative around that particular tag, no one cares about that because it has nothing to do with the story. This has to do with people being a woman first, a warrior second, and other things too that I can't mention. And when you do that and you service everything around that, it really makes the story powerful. For watchability, I'm going to give The Woman King an 8. It's very enjoyable. I really can't wait to watch it again just to see some other things about it. It's not as violent as I thought it would be. I think it's PG-13, and the themes are pretty severe, but there's no nudity, anything like that. But it is, again, well, there's a little bit of almost nudity now that I think about it. So yeah, never mind that. Anyway, it is a really good film in terms of watchability. So I will watch it a second time, maybe not a third or fourth, but definitely worth a second viewing. So from an overall rating of this film, I'm going to give it an 8. It's a really fabulous film. It really is. Some of the lighting in the opening scene I thought wasn't done very well. I mean, it was hiding some of the action scenes, but the action scenes were phenomenal, as you can imagine. Some of the wide shots of the armies doing their maneuvers and the dancing, those sorts of things were choreographed beautifully. It was just a really good film in terms of what it's trying to tell you under the layer of it being some sort of woke agenda, when really it really isn't. It's about humans who love their families and their country and their tribe, trying to live their lives and try to provide for the future, try to be loyal to the king, and try to fend off warring armies and slave traders, and also elements within their own group who want to keep the slave trade going. It's very deep and layered in that point of view. So yeah, so this film is wonderful in that regard. So here we are in the spoiler section. I'm not going to try to tell you too much about the film because you should see it. I'm not going to tell you some of the things that are like the plot twists. I won't tell you that. But I will tell you that the film does get a few things wrong in terms of the narrative. The Dahomey tribe, the king Gezo, which is played by John Boyega, was a guy who was trying to legitimize his tribe by getting away from the slave trade, going into more natural resources, I think like palm oils and stuff like that, so they wouldn't be selling their own people into slavery. And the people who were there, I believe it was the French and the British, wanted them to not do that, otherwise they would be relegated to obscurity and they wouldn't be protected. So they were insistent on removing themselves from the slave trade. It kind of reminds me of the narrative of like The Godfather Part 3, where they're trying to legitimize the business, similar to that in terms of that, and the pressures of going legitimate, what that brings to you, because you have to replace that income and still have security as well. So that was there. But also what they didn't mention to you is that this same tribe became huge later and continued the slave trade beyond all of that. So the film makes you think that they stopped it, but in real life, they really didn't. In fact, they were extremely brutal. And check out this video that we did a couple weeks ago. You will see a first-hand account of a person who's taken from his tribe by the Dahomey tribe, by Amazon female warriors, and taken off, and the atrocities that he saw them do. So in real life, they were a lot worse than the film puts them out to be. So there's that. What's interesting is the warring tribe that was coming in and attacking the Dahomey tribe, they were actually in real life the other way around. It was flipped. The Dahomey tribe became so large that they became that warring tribe that would go out and attack other villages for their stuff. So, and again, that's something that they didn't tell you about in the film, and people can get the wrong impression about what this tribe was. Another big aspect in this film that I thought was interesting was that Viola Davis is obviously the woman king in the film, and she is a brutal, hard, no crying, no tears, all this stuff person who's trying to convey this to this young woman, Nawe, who's, I guess, 19 years old. Don't cry, be strong, this and that. But what's happening is they ended up doing this kind of a path here, right? So Viola Davis is becoming more feminine and soft and caring toward the end because she's recognizing some things that happened to her. She was captured, things happened to her, another thing happened to her. And she was saying that the beast that she was dreaming about was actually herself. It was the inner female in her, the inner caring and sensitivity that she was suppressing. And now she's going to let that take control and become more prominent. So she has to go rescue Nawe later in the film. And I thought that was really, really powerful. She went against her king and said, you know what? I'm gonna let my more feminine side, not my manly side that she's been projecting the entire film, and go do that. And that's the moment that got me the most. Well, not quite the most, but it got me a lot because I thought that was really powerful, and how her tribe followed her regardless that the king told them not to go do that. And so I'll say one more time that this film has a strong nationalist theme to it. It's like, we want to make our tribe the best. You know, we want to make us strong and make sure we can protect ourselves. And it's a tribe with borders. They want to make sure that they're strong and secure and that they can do things legitimately and not have the element of a swamp, more or less, that's going to want to keep all of that slave trading going on, even though it's bad for their people. And they wanted to get away from that. So these are some key messages here. And one more thing I'm going to mention here. This is a super duper spoiler. So if you don't want to hear this, turn your head. Viola Davis's character gets pregnant. And because of that, she decides at some point to have the child. And then at one point, you're thinking she's going to kill the child, but she actually implants something in her arm so she can identify this child later in life. And also, when she confronts her daughter later in the movie, she realizes that I was a bad mother. I'm sorry for doing this to you. And the child said, look, you know, I'm sorry for being part of your pain. And then Viola Davis's character said, look, you know what? It's not a problem. I love you. It wasn't your fault. Just because something happened to me, if you know what I'm talking about, the R word, because it happened to me and I had you, doesn't mean that you're any less of a person. And so that strong pro-life message in here, that I'm sure it's going to go over the head of many, many people. Okay. You know what I mean? So that to me is really powerful, because they want to say all the time when it comes to the pro-life movement, well, what about the R word? Well, it's not the baby's fault, right? And so that was really well done. And so I had to mention that here in the spoiler section to let you guys know that this movie has some serious heart and consideration. And it's funny how these leftists want to say one thing, but when it comes to their movies and entertainment, they want to go to conservative values. And it's really, really fascinating how they don't see that that's what they're doing. But it happens all the time. So for The Woman King, I give it a 15.5, which translates to 3.5 stars. And they go with caution for my conservative take. I was completely and utterly shocked by this film, of how much I enjoyed it. This film's going to be huge. It's going to be really popular. It's going to have a strong word of mouth. And I'm not recommending you go see it because it is Hollywood. But this review is for people who, one, don't want to go see it, but want to know about it so they can talk about it. And two, for people who don't have the sensibility of not paying for Hollywood films. So how about you? Do you plan on seeing The Woman King? If you don't want to go see it, I can't blame you, because the marketing of this film is absolutely a woke film, but it really isn't. And if it's a Hollywood film, I can see you not wanting to spend money for Hollywood. So this review may be the extent of what you may do when it comes to this film. But if you do go see it, let me know, comment below. Let me know what you think about it. I'm going to be doing a review with Nicole, depending on when you see this. That link will be below. If it's in the future, you will be probably tomorrow. So check out that. And we'll cover this more in our live stream, because this film is extremely important, because for simple reason, the narrative that Africans sold other Africans into slavery just doesn't get out there very much. And people don't know this. And the fact that they're admitting it opens up the dialogue for us to talk about it, and how extensive it was, and how other people and religions were involved that weren't Christians in the slave trade. I'll leave it there. Needs to be discussed, because you can't blame one group of people for the slave trade. Almost everybody was involved in it some way, shape, form, or fashion. Tell history the way it needs to be taught. And that's really what it comes down to. It comes down to looking at everyone as humans who make mistakes, who are sinful, and all of those things. That is the issue, not pinning it on any one group just because you want to get over with power and money and control. And so if you like what we do on this channel, we take pop culture and politics and filter to your right, then please check out some more content that we have for you right here.